The one right outside the building? Yeah, it's, right, it's after like 4 o'clock.
Oh.
And I guess the green lights as well, which I just had to figure out now. No.
What is the email for? That I can send.
What's that?
What is it? What is your email?
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let's make a little bit
Oh,
people are going to need it.
yeah.
Do I want to do that? Let me ask. How many people are here? Most people here? Sorry, that was a very.
Oh, yeah.
Just give me half a second and I'll figure out from have you guys email them or maybe just drop them in the box.
Okay.
Because I'll be back here on Tuesday.
Alright.
And I probably won't.
It's low too. It's like
It's a little low. I don't understand why that can't just be one piece of share. Okay. Let me give you these ambiguities back at break. Maybe do that at break. How many people just tried to print the computer lab and can't print? Just 4 of you?
I thought it was better to go with you.
You are equal. You just bring me a hard copy and put it in my mailbox. I'll pick it up Tuesday.
Where's your number?
It's in the faculty, in the music office. You know, it's right here on the.
Oh.
There's like an adjunct. If you look at the mailboxes, they make like an L, and that adjunct boxes are over here. You're right. And it's in there somewhere. If you just tell the person in front desk, they'll be fine. All right. If you just put in hard copies, because otherwise I'll. Inevitably lose them in the email shop. If you don't mind, and like I'm probably not gonna get them before Tuesday anyway, so I'll at least those 4.
Yeah.
I'll just pick them up. So Brendan, you might just leave it in my box one day.
Were you wasting your time?
Did you have issue printing?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm good.
Then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So everybody has your papers. I don't think I can even handle this chair. There's no way to stop it. I will do this. Take a thorough look over your papers. Well, let me ask this first. Did everybody bring an extra score? Did you bring your packet though from last time? You at least have the Beethoven. Hopefully, okay, we will do that. Do you have your score in that one still?
Yeah.
The packet I handed out last week with Doppelganger. All right, so you took the wolf score out of it?
Yeah.
All right. Hold on to your papers then for now. Is that true for everybody? Most everybody? Okay, then I'll collect them after. I'd like to talk about it, but I kind of wanted you to hand it in first. Don't change anything.
Okay.
Or change it in a different color or something like that.
Alright.
Yes, yeah. I can't take this chair. Okay. This chair. Usual. So, why don't we start here? Okay. What did you think of the song?
It was ambiguous.
It was definitely full of ambiguity. Was that ambiguity resolved by the end?
It does.
Would you say, yeah? Pretty definitively. But it sets up, there's some interesting things to talk about. What did you just think about it in general, outside of the ambiguity?
Yeah. It's cool. Short song.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short little piece. There's still like tons to talk about
Yeah.
with it, right? Which is cool, which is one of the good things. How many people were familiar with it before? It's he's a great composer, great lead composer. Worth checking out more stuff. I think that you will enjoy it very much. But let's dig into this piece a little bit. And again, try to not alter your views too much. But I asked you to talk about the piece, talk about the form of the piece, talk about the ambiguity of it, do a harmonic analysis. We will talk about the harmonic analysis now. Let me duplicate this. sense, I don't think, did we listen to the group last time? So, let's dig in. So, where shall we start? Where shall we begin? I mean, obviously, there's clearly some ambiguity here, right? That's what we're dealing with this week, and that's what we're going to talk about. How would you say the ambiguous nature of it is on a very local level or very global level?
Very locally.
How so?
Because like the first page was being ambiguous.
Think about
Then
what
on
you
the
just said.
second page,
Think about what you just said. The first page out of a 2-page piece was pretty ambiguous.
yeah, I mean like the first page was 3. Just 3.
But if you're looking at it, if you're defining the amount of ambiguity out of a 2-page piece is 50%,
I feel like
right? That's pretty. I guess my point is that's even just by how it sounds pretty global, right? I mean, you're not looking at a small. You're not talking about, oh yeah, there's like this one chord that kind of resolved here, right? So when we're thinking about that global ambiguity, in this case, it's got a lot to do with you kind of don't know what key you're in for a while, right? You're up in the air about the key. There's no defining moment to tell you what key you're in until you're a significant way into the piece for this length of a piece, right? Maybe the first clear kind of harmony that we could possibly be in a key area comes in at bar 7 with the E flat. But how clearly that gets defined is maybe reasonably debatable about whether that's really our key or not. And even then, measure 7, we're not talking about a significantly long piece. You know, it maybe doesn't become very clear until 22, 25. That E flat maybe gets a lot of clarity involved. And that's essentially we're just at E flat for the rest of the time there. But we're kind of up in the air at the beginning. We simply don't know where we're at, right? And past that, we end up visiting a lot of keys that we wouldn't maybe normally expect. We go to some strange places, and then we can begin to think about, well, how do those relate on the global level, and how do we decide which key that we're in? So, I mean, what leaves us up in the air at the beginning? Let's talk about the ambiguity. I mean, maybe we can even talk about getting into the piece. What's maybe your first challenge in analyzing this piece? I asked you to do an harmonic analysis of it. What's maybe the first challenge of doing that?
The lack of thirds.
All right, so you got a significant lack of thirds, right? And if we have a significant lack of thirds, then we have a significant lack of quality. We don't have any third on this opening chord. And along with that, what does that make it difficult to do? It might make it difficult to find that chord, and also what key you're starting in, right? You can't really, there's nothing clear towards the beginning. Now, of course, we know that the first measure doesn't ever really tell us the key, right? It always tells us at the end. And in this piece, we do maybe have a clear motion towards, you know, a clear statement of E flat at the end. When I look in the last bar, I have a clear E flat major triad. There's nothing strange about it. So maybe E flat's my key rather than the possibility of the C minor that the key signature could also relate to. But the problem is the first thing that we see is this G. And we don't know how it's existing. Because it's a G, of our two possible key areas that we'd be thinking about based on the key signature, could possibly be the 5 and C, but it doesn't have that defining B natural. And it could possibly be the 3 in E flat, but again, it doesn't have a defining B flat. So we're kind of left in the open. Where does it seem like it's leaning towards at the beginning? The C minor, right? And how so? Why? All right, the measure 3 chord, okay? Which is what? Yeah, it's the 2 diminished 7, right? Within the key area of C. So one thing I might do if I'm going to start approaching a piece like this, and I'm not sure at the beginning, I may almost kind of think about both, would be one possible approach, okay? And again, obviously, like with any piece, you want to go towards the end and deal with it. But again, if I'm in C, I'm dealing with what seems to be some kind of a 5. Again, we don't know actually whether it's 5 or whether it's 5. We don't have any statement of that B, right? When we're left, or again, you know, is it the 3 E flat? We don't know yet. But then we seem to get this 2. We have this 2 half diminished 7. There we go. 2 half diminished 7, which is going to be in the key areas. So that's going to lead us towards the thought of C, right? Maybe because it's acting like the 2. Except, could what? It could be the 7 half diminished 7 in E flat, right? We don't actually know yet. The 7th chord as a 7 is actually a half diminished 7th in major. Remember that, right? So it does function in both keys. And yet the relationship that I see, you know, I'm thinking, okay, so I've either got 5. Now, first of all, 5 moving to the 2, if we're in C, that's an odd progression in and of itself, right? It's a retrograde progression. So it's one that already sets up something a little bit strange. I mean, we do have 5th relationships in and of itself. The first thing we hear is ding, ding. If anything, that G kind of sets itself up. If you didn't look at the key signature, you'd almost think, you know, okay, we're settling into G. You're right. You're hearing that, and it's open. And then all of a sudden it goes to this D half diminished, which you would normally expect. But we could interpret that D half diminished as the 7/7 on E flat. Now then, it would be going to what would be, you know, either going to the 3, then it'd be hard to think of this thing as a 1 in any way. In E flat, it'd be like 1 7, you've got no tonic there. So the 7 is going to a bit of a strange place. Again, we could be going back and forth between this 5-ish kind of thing in the G. The 2 have to be a 7. Or again, you know, is this functioning as 7 half to be a 7 in E flat? We still don't know. We're back again. And finally, we get this E flat. So the E flat couldn't be the 1 in the E flat, or what's to say we haven't finally arrived at the 3 chord in C. C minor. There's nothing that really, if anything, things have pushed us a little bit more towards C. I mean, I've got this back and forth, 2 5 2 5, and then all of a sudden it goes to what could be the 3. There's still nothing clearly defined. There's not at this moment, just because I get the E flat triad, there was nothing that led into the E flat that tells us this is the key. Now it's definitive. We get a full triad, right? We get that sound there. You might think about this chord. Hold on 1 second. I might think about this here, because that's going to help to start to define a 5-to-1 relationship in E flat over the pedal. The thing that ends up being distinctly missing in this bar is what? The thirds, right? more of the thirds. What we get is like, it seems like the sound of the E flat, and we might start to accept it, but we still don't have any E flat major there. The G is still kind of hanging in our ear, but we don't definitively have it. If it's the C, then it's got the 7th over, which seems strange. It's the large melodic note. So it does seem like the E flat. And then we have this B flat that helps us to feel the 5-1 relationship into an E flat, but that doesn't have the leading tone of that key. That's now gone. So we're left with kind of this openness to it. Heather, you were going to
Yes. So
comment.
when I first started looking at this piece last Thursday, and I thought that too. I was like, oh, this is obviously in C minor. Like, why would it be anything different? And then, and so I analyzed it, and I analyzed like the first like half page, and then it's like, you know what, Heather, you should really listen to this before.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
But so like I
Always
thought,
first. Listening is first step.
But
Number 1 always.
in this case, I'm kind of glad that I didn't, just because I mean, it was really, I was like, you know. But then when I did listen to it, I was like, the first thing I thought was, oh man, this is not in C minor.
Yeah, and again, don't ever just start your analysis based on the meaning. You've got to look at the end. There's nothing there. There's nothing to tell me in the anywhere on the first page that we're actually in C minor. There's no defining cadence. There's also no defining cadence to the B flat. The closest thing that we've gotten to is this B flat with the open 5th, and yet it's acting over the pedal, right? So it's kind of leaving us here, yet we seem to be coming into a little bit more of a definitive sound, and yet nothing's here. The one thing that we can say about it is we have a big back and forth.
So even like looking at the meter and the lyrics and everything, like use that to support or to look for hints of like. I mean, that's what I ended up doing. I was like, well, if I were watching this musical, like, what would I, you know, it doesn't seem like it's sad. It seems like something that's like from the Sound of Music.
Yeah, maybe not
You know what I mean?
quite. but no, I mean, there's nothing, it's not, you know, it doesn't have to be sad. And it's not really sad. You know, are you sleeping, my girl? Up, open the door for
Yeah,
me.
so then why
For
would
the
you
hour has
sleep
come
like
when we get away from here. You know, and are you without and you are without shoes, put nothing on, through raging water goes our path, through the deep, deep water. I can't say the name of that word, I'm sorry. For the hour has come when we wander from here.
So
You know,
like,
and
can
really,
use
when we
that?
wander from here, that's almost like when we get out of here, like when we
Yeah.
go, like, you know.
They're gonna run away together. It's kind of like a love story.
It's definitely something with definitive energy to it.
So then,
You know.
can we, you know, even though this is ambiguous, like, are we allowed to like look at
Yeah, I mean, right in there, so you've got to look at the text. You're looking at the song.
Yeah.
You have to think about the text. And right now, are you sleeping, my girl? It's kind of up in the air.
That's what I said.
Right?
in
I
my
mean,
paper. I was like,
there's nothing definitive about what's going on here, right? I mean, that's how we might relate this to the text. That it's,
and I said that.
There's
the
nothing
accompaniment,
concrete.
He's like knocking on her door.
Ding,
Really great lines.
Yeah, you said
Yeah,
about
he's
that.
like, hello.
Oops. It does have that feel to it. I mean, it definitely is a distinctive, I mean, it almost has that gallant kind of thing. Ding, ding. And I mean, you know, it's got that, you know, it's not so much of the rocking 6/8. It's definitely the galloping 6/8, right? Da-da-da. And I mean, it's very distinctive rhythm, and absolutely, that's not a bad interpretation at all. But definitely one thing I would relate the harmonic area to is, you know, are you sleeping, my girl? You know, it's somewhat dreamlike.
Yeah.
And what's going on? Is this actually a physical, like, let's get out of here, or is this a complete dream thing? Are you sleeping? Let's wander off in your dreams thing. Is it metaphysical? Is it physical? Like, what is it? You know, we're kind of,
Like the doppelganger.
we're in a,
Maybe he's like not talking to anybody.
you know, we're definitely in a strange place. And he doesn't make anything concrete. And I think that's how he creates that dreamlike state. We do get to this point where we, if anything, the one thing that we can say is we do settle on the E flat longer than we've settled on anything in the piece. And that's the one thing that I can say. And no, we don't have the third there. I do say we do have a lot of G in our ear because, you know, it's been pounded out. And the one thing that we could definitely discuss about being an arrival at the E flat is that, you know, these have set up the D, D, and finally coming up to the E flat. You know, you've had that, and it's almost like a resolution of that, right? G, D, E flat, G, D, E flat. It's like wanting to get there, and it's kind of finally gotten there. And yet it's still not definitive. There's no thirds, right? Our most defining interval, there's not. And the melody is just really sitting there. Like,
Well, couldn't you say that it finally gets there and with between measure 9 and 10, like on B2 of measure 9, you kind of get this into a 5/7 with the A flat in the voice, and then you get the G.
yeah, so here,
And then that's measure.
right?
Yeah.
The A flat to the G is maybe where it gets more defined.
Yeah.
And again, that's still happening with this, what seems like this 5 chord that I circled earlier,
Yeah.
right? Where we still don't have that leading tone, we still don't have the third, but it's one of those things of take all the information that you have and it leads down. Right? And maybe by here is where it's really saying, this is the first time we do have a clear, full chord. Absolutely. And then where do we go? So we finally, it's concrete, we must be in E flat. Right? Maybe we're in E flat, we've settled on it for a while, and still could theoretically be the 3 and C, but, you know, we've settled there, maybe we can buy it, and then what do we do?
I have to just have a bunch of scribbles.
Okay, a bunch of scribbles, or
I call that chord right there on measure 10 as a pivot chord moving to A flat.
moving to B flat.
And the next 4 measures are the tonicization of G flat. So seeing a chromatic median relationship of those 4 measures,
Right?
arriving to 1 in B flat in measure 15.
All right. I might not agree with the pivot itself, but I think your idea is good. I think you're definitely on the right track. Maybe some other people found that track too. If we just let's for a second talk about what it is, right? Identify Jennifer. What's the chord?
What's the D?
What do you mean?
After.
E flat half diminished 7th, right? In first inversion, you know, this first stated, we have a D flat half diminished 7th. Okay. Going to G flat. Okay, and then again D flat half diminished 7th, and maybe we'll say half diminished 6/5 because that's really what's happening. Going to G flat. Okay. So think about that for a second. What just occurred? Right now, without even trying to get into like, oh, here's the key area. And I think Michael's on a very good track with this. But what happened?
It's a 3 6 first.
It's just, okay, at what pitch level? Yeah, it's a half step down. It's essentially a half step transposition of the first events. The chords slightly voiced differently, but even the melody itself. Here was all the D's, here's the D flats, right? Just look at it. I mean, it's a copy and paste and throw some flats on. Now it is. Right? And in short notes, we have this D flat, so we've drifted by a half step from where we were. Right? This is, you know, if this was the G, here's the G flat. Here's the D half diminished, here's the D flat half diminished. Now, Mike, to go back, you said you felt it was a tonicization of G flat.
Well, not of G flat. It was like those functioned within G flat. Well, I mean, you could count.
Where did we see those chords when we saw those earlier? The half step up. What key?